and I always enjoy that.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces here tonight and some not so familiar faces as well. It's great to have some new people here. Welcome, everybody. My name is Rachel Jordan. I'm the Assistant Director of Texas Health and Environment Alliance. Our mission is to protect public health and the environment by engaging, educating, and empowering impacted communities to advocate effectively for the cleanup of historical contamination. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. Our approach uses environmental health literacy, strategic science, and grassroots organizing to accomplish our mission. We are not a law firm, we are not a water filtration company, and we are not the government. We are not the EPA. I'm going to be talking to you guys tonight, as most of you probably already know, about the Jones Road Groundwater Plume Superfund site. The site is located about half a mile north of 1960 off Jones Road. This is where Bell Dry Cleaner began improperly dumping their dry cleaning waste in 1988 until about 2002, which created a very large groundwater plume that ended up migrating west underneath the adjacent community. Some of the potential exposures from this site include inhalation from vapors. So we worry about vapor intrusion, where these contaminants can volatilize and go up into the air, and it can cause issues through breathing. There's also an exposure risk through ingestion, through eating or drinking contaminated groundwater, and there's also a risk through direct contact through skin or eye contact, through bathing, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, things like that. So where is it that we're actually seeing this contamination? This right here is a map that shows the places where we have found contamination, and it also shows the places where the EPA has found contamination. All of the purple triangles are going to be where the EPA has found contamination over the years through their testing. And then the red stars are going to be where THEA has found groundwater contamination through our testing that we do independently. And during our last meeting, we had a couple of residents ask if we could create a map that showed where exactly we have tested before to kind of give you an idea of where we're seeing that the contamination is not being found as well. So if you take a look at this map, all of the green squares are going to be some of the, or around where the properties that we have tested are. If there's not a red star or a purple triangle on it, contamination has not been found there to this point. The only outlier that I will point out is up in the corner right here. We did find contamination in a well of carbon tetrachloride, which is not one of the contaminants of concern from the site, but it is still a localized issue that we're looking into. But we have tested several wells right around that property and haven't found it anywhere else. So we are working with the homeowner to get that figured out. As I mentioned, THEA does quarterly water testing. We do this to monitor the fluctuating contamination levels that we are seeing in people's wells. It's important for us to know and for homeowners to know where those contaminant levels are and if they are gone or if they stay in the well and kind of how they fluctuate over time. It's really important for us and the EPA to know the fluctuations of these contaminants, because once they go below the maximum contaminant level from the EPA usually stops testing those wells. We like to keep an eye on it because we know that due to the nature of this plume, these contaminants kind of go in and out. And so even if you might not find it one time, there's a possibility you could find it the next time, and so on and so forth. So we continue to do our quarterly water testing to keep an eye on people's wells and the water that they're bringing into their homes. During our last meeting, and then back in June when the EPA was here, the EPA let us know that the contract for the remedial investigation and feasibility study was awarded, and that the EPA is working with contractors to conduct the investigation. This right here is just a depiction of what the Superfund process is. It starts with assessment, it goes into characterization, then you get a decision, then you move into the cleanup, and then there's the post-cleanup. The most recent stage that we were in would be the cleanup stage. The EPA has been implementing a remedial action for many, many years. The lights. Yeah, let me see if I can turn them down real quick. I don't know how to turn off the lights in here. But, so we were in the remedial action phase of the cleanup, which is where they were implementing that remedial action, which was the in-situ bioremediation. Thank you. Is that better? Okay. But we pushed, along with the community, the EPA to redelineate the plume. They hadn't studied the plume or where exactly the plume was located since 2010. So we pushed really hard for the EPA to figure out where the plume is today, because a lot can change in 15 years, and the community here deserves to know where exactly there could be exposures and who exactly is being impacted by this contamination. So the EPA has returned to the characterization phase, redoing the remedial investigation and feasibility study so that they can figure out where the plume is today. This right here is the EPA's original estimated timeline for this project, which is the remedial investigation feasibility study, or RIFS, you might hear it referred to as. It started in March of this year with a site visit with the contractor that they awarded the contract for this project. Then they went over work plans. They hosted that community meeting in June, and then they were collecting access agreements from there. Once they got access agreements, they were able to move into the field investigation stage. Phase 1 was to start in September of this year, and phase 2 was slated to start in March of next year, and then hopefully completing the remedial investigation by September of 2026. In our latest communications from the EPA, they let us know that in August of this year, they completed the phase 1 field investigation, and they're currently waiting on the results of that investigation. They did let us know that they were able to install 50 passive soil gas samplers on private properties and county right-of-ways during that phase 1. Phase 1 also included things like site inspections and well surveys, updating the conceptual site model, producing a data gap report and geologic model, obtaining those access agreements that we talked about, borehole geophysical logging, which measures underground soil and rock properties, and then passive soil gas air sampling as well. And like I said, that was completed in August of this year. Now we're moving into phase 2 of the field investigation, which is estimated by the EPA to start this month, although that is subject to change, so we're still waiting to hear if that's going to change from the EPA or not. But this phase 2 of the investigation includes well evaluation and redevelopment, high-resolution site characterization, which provides real-time results and allows for a dynamic strategy in the field. So if they find something, they're able to adjust their strategy more so as they go than having to wait a long time to get results and then figuring out what to do from there. They're also going to be installing new monitoring wells, abandoning some wells, and then doing groundwater and vapor sampling as well. So what happens after they complete the remedial investigation? We're going to move into the remedy selection phase, which is a very important stage, and it's very important for the community to be in the know and ready for this next stage when remedies are presented. The EPA has 9 criteria for remedy selection. They have to make sure that the remedy is overall protective of human health and the environment, that the remedy complies with applicable or relevant appropriate requirements, that the remedy has long-term effectiveness, it reduces the toxicity, mobility, or volume through treatment, the remedy must have short-term effectiveness, implementability, costs, state acceptance, and last but definitely not least, community acceptance. So what exactly does that mean? Your voice really matters at this stage. You have a right to participate in this process, and the EPA will present remedies and open up a public comment period, and that's where you guys come in. We are here to inform y'all about what's going on with the EPA and the updates to this site, and then once the EPA is done with this remedial investigation and feasibility study, they will present potential remedies to the community, and the community will have an opportunity to leave public comments on those remedies, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, what your thoughts and comments are on those types of things. So it's really important to know where the EPA is at and the next steps in the process. During the EPA meeting and our last meeting, several community members asked about sites that are similar to the Jones Road site, what kind of remedies have worked in other sites, or what kind of remedies are being implemented in sites that are similar to this one. So I'm going to take some time and go over, we did some research, so I'm going to go over some of those sites with you guys and kind of pull out the importance or the things that we can take away from what has happened at other sites that are similar to the Jones Road site. So the first site that I want to talk about is the Fruit Avenue Plume in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This was also a dry cleaner site that operated from 1924 to 1972. The EPA used soil vapor extraction like they have at the Jones Road site, and they also used extraction, treatment, and monitoring of groundwater. The important thing to pull away from what's happening at this site is that the remedies were successful in protecting human health and the environment. So this type of project, this type of remedy could be indicative of an expected timeline if this kind of remedy is selected for the Jones Road site. The beginning of operation of the pump and treat system began in 2005, and they're expected to meet the remediation goals by 2030. So pump and treat, which was initially the remedy that was selected for the Jones Road site by the TCEQ, the EPA rejected that and went with in situ bioremediation. So if they're presenting pump and treat as an option for the remedies this go around, it could take around 25 years for it to be fully effective. So just keep that in mind. The next site that I want to talk to you about is this one in Grand Island, Nebraska. They had soil and groundwater contamination from 4 source areas, including similar contaminants of concern to that of Jones Road, also including petroleum hydrocarbons. So here they began doing groundwater extraction and treatment back in 1993. And then they did air sparging systems, groundwater monitoring, they removed the petroleum hydrocarbons, and then they prohibited the installation of drinking water wells on site. They also have a no new well zone here for the Jones Road site. So this is something that's similar to this site as well. And then another similarity is that this site has a soil vapor extraction system in place that operated from 2004 to 2007. The EPA currently has a soil vapor extraction system on site for the Jones Road site in the shopping center. The main takeaways that we pulled from looking through this site is that SVE, which is the soil vapor extraction system, and then groundwater and thermal treatment remedies can be effective to address these types of contamination. We looked at several other sites, and I just wanted to share with you guys the insights that we pulled from some of those other sites that we looked at. Many of the sites, I believe it was 3 or 4 of them, including the Carlisle Village Cleaners and Pike and Mulberry Street in Indiana and New Mexico, they installed air purifying units as temporary mitigation measures, and that showed to be effective in the short term. So the EPA does recommend vapor intrusion mitigation at both commercial and residential properties at sites that are similar to the Jones Road site. And that's something that we've been pushing the EPA to study further, is the actual vapor intrusion risk and the risk that people are facing or could be facing due to the volatilization of these contaminants and the plume that's underneath people's homes. At the Pike and Mulberry Street site, they offered those air purifying systems, the vapor intrusion mitigation systems, to all homes and businesses on site. That is not something that they have done around the Jones Road site, but it's something that we're pushing the EPA to look further into to better protect the community. If doing something like that is presented from the EPA and it's accepted by the community and meets those other 8 criteria that we talked about, implementation of these vapor intrusion mitigation systems can happen relatively quickly. At the Pike and Mulberry site, the record of decision was signed in 2020, and they had installation of these mitigation systems by 2023. Another site that has quite a few insights to take away from is the McGaffney and Maine groundwater plume in Roswell, New Mexico. They also had those vapor intrusion mitigation systems installed, and they also had used enhanced soil vapor extraction systems in the 4 commercial buildings in the area around the site. Again, at this site as well, the EPA still recommends that vapor intrusion mitigation at commercial properties. They recommend that at sites that are, like I said, similar to that of Jones, and it can be effective to do so. The monitoring and the movement and expansion of a plume can be a priority at sites like this, which we are seeing the EPA making it a priority now by returning to that remedial investigation and feasibility study stage of the process. So this site showed us that that can be a priority, and now we're seeing it at our Jones Road site. And then remediation of source area groundwater is possible. So we know that groundwater remediation is possible, so there's no way that the EPA can come back and say that we can't do this, it's not feasible. We've seen it done in other places, we know it can be done here too. And last but not least, Continental Cleaners in Miami, Florida. This site is a little bit different because the EPA decided to do demolition and excavation. So they demolished a building that the plume was under. They excavated the soil and removed that contaminated soil, and then they replaced it with clean soil. And then here, similar to Jones Road, the groundwater remedy that was chosen by the EPA was the enhanced in situ bioremediation. So here, something different that we've seen is that the record of decision considered implementing property record notices to inform anyone performing a search of property records of important information about contamination and response actions on the site. So this site taught us or showed us that the EPA can recommend implementing property record notices to inform the public about contamination and cleanup, which is something that we've talked to many residents about doing. So it would be interesting to see the EPA present this as a potential institutional control, is what it's called, when they put things in place to make sure that people are informed about these sites and what's going on. Okay. I know that was a lot of information. That was a lot of sites to go over, but our community asked for it. They wanted to know what similar sites were out there, so that was some of them that we found that we could relate back to our Jones Road site to kind of see what we might be able to expect coming out of the remedial investigation and moving into that remedy selection phase of the Superfund process. The four main takeaways from all of that information that I just gave to you guys is that the EPA can recommend implementing property record notices to inform the public about contamination and cleanup. The EPA does recommend vapor intrusion mitigation at commercial and residential properties at sites similar to the Jones Road site, and monitoring the movement and expansion of the plume can be a priority, and remediation of source area groundwater is possible. So this is all really good news to hear. For the research that we did is that we have options. There are a lot of things that could happen going forward, and the remediation is possible. So there is end in sight to this, that this could get cleaned up, hopefully sooner rather than later. I know that this community has been waiting a very long time for this to get cleaned up, and we are here to continue pushing the EPA to make those moves and get this site cleaned up and out of your community. The EPA is still connecting residents that are within the waterline area of the Superfund site to the White Oak Bend mud. So if you do live within the waterline area, which is going to be the red line here on this map, and we have a map up at the front if anybody wants a closer look to see what these, like the cross streets and stuff are, what all the streets are, where the boundaries lie for this. If you have any questions about that. But the EPA is still signing people up to switch off of their wells onto the water line. So if you're interested and you do live in that no new well area and that water line area, you can contact the remedial project manager at the EPA, which is Lauren Guidry Leach, or you can contact Jason McKinney, who's their community involvement coordinator. And if you try to reach out and you can't get a hold of them, let us know and we will reach out to them as well. Sometimes we have better luck getting a hold of them than our community members have, which is not a good thing, but at least we can get a hold of them somehow. If you are a newer community member, help us help you. Take our health survey, which you can do. We have some hard copies in the back, or I guess technically in the front. We have some hard copies if you'd like to fill out one of our health surveys. You can also do so by scanning this QR code. And if you live within this area of concern and you'd like to have your water tested independently by Texas Health and Environment Alliance, please come up to either me or Christy at the end of the meeting and we can get your information and get you onto our quarterly water testing list. And I would love to open it up to any questions that you guys might have. I know that was a lot of information in a not so long amount of time, so I want to give you guys the opportunity to ask me some questions if you have any, or any comments or concerns that you might have as well.
I have a
Yes, carbon tetrachloride, and hold your eyes. It looks like that's off of Leader Drive.
Okay, so Leader is one black.
Okay. Yeah, we've tested other homes on Leader Drive and then also on Oralia, and we have not found that contamination anywhere else. We've only found it in that one well. And we've tested, like I said, several of the neighbors around there, and we haven't seen it as an issue anywhere else.
Any idea what the
Not really. We've looked into it a little bit. There's some stuff that says it could be dry cleaning contaminants, but it's not one of the contaminants of concern from the Jones Road site. We have let the EPA know that we did find it. They didn't seem too concerned about it, so our next step is to follow up with the TCEQ and see if they can help us figure out where that source is. But like I said, it really seems like a hyper-local issue with it's just that one well, because like I said, we've tested really right all around it and haven't seen anything else. We did reach out to Harris County Pollution Control about it, and they directed us to the TCEQ. So that's our next step, is to contact them and work with the homeowner to try and get that figured out.
You have that testimony?
We have? Oh, good. Yes.
Do you have any research or have you feel from like data on how a typical spread, like what typical regions of pollution? I know it's like varies in area and groundwater, but like just getting a scale of like order of magnitude for a contaminant like this, like what is the typical circumference of, like impacted area?
It really varies. So groundwater plumes can be a variety of sizes. I know that for this particular one, it is controlled by the movement of the aquifer and the groundwater, and things that can impact that are increased demands in other areas. So if there's an increased demand to the west, it'll pull the water where the demand is going. And so that's one of the reasons why we started doing this investigative water sampling study that we did, was to see if that plume had migrated outside of that Superfund area that the EPA was going by, because those lines, those boundary lines are just imaginary. There's nothing there that's keeping the contamination from spreading or moving, but that's one of the reasons that we are doing this quarterly water testing, is to monitor that, and we haven't seen any of the contaminants outside of those boundary lines as of right now.
Do they have a feel for which direction the has been moving? Is there any feel for any research on that?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head which direction. I want to say the most recent direction they said was southeast. So it's moving back kind of towards Jones Road instead of like further into the neighborhood. And so we've been pushing the EPA to do more testing closer to Jones Road and closer to 1960 to see how that looks. And we're hoping that during this remedial investigation that that's what they've been looking at, is places a little outside of those boundaries to see if they can catch it anywhere else. Yes? Yes, those, I believe, those are where EPA has found, I want to say it was vinyl chloride, which is one of the breakdown products of TCE and PCE. I don't know off the top of my head what year those were found or when that was, but when we did testing, we didn't really see anything further that way. But those are EPA monitoring wells, and they did pick up some vinyl chloride at one point. I don't think they're currently finding that vinyl chloride there, but it's definitely something that we can remember to ask the EPA next time we contact them or next time they're here to do a meeting.
Why is that lower rate ground?
Say that again?
It's very low for the east.
Mhm. So, I don't know why they drew the line that way. I know that they did it to encompass certain neighborhoods, like that were behind the shopping center. Like this right here, that's outside of that is actually an apartment complex, but they're on a mud, not the White Oak Bend mud, I don't think, but they are on a mud. Which is, okay, yeah, so I think that might be why they excluded that one, but I honestly couldn't give you a straight answer on to why the boundary line is drawn the way that it is. It's very weird. Any other questions? Yeah. That's a great question. I don't know. I would have to look into that to see what the geology looks like. I'd have to dig a little deeper into those sites to see what that looks like. But we can definitely do that and see what the differences are in terms of that, to see if that's changing anything with the way the plume moves or anything like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
East over there, and it's possible that PCE over here might be.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting point, and I think that would be great to look into. I think the majority of the contaminants, the way that they're moving currently, is in the aquifer. And so I don't know how that interacts with the storm sewer system, but I do know that that's what they're finding the contaminants in the actual aquifer. So it'd definitely be something to look into, and maybe a better question for the EPA. They might know. I haven't seen anything about them studying the storm sewers for this site, but it might be worth looking into. Yeah.
What we do is we water, that might water,
So they have only studied down to 50 feet below ground surface. And then I'm not sure, the EPA actually hasn't been able to answer the question that we've had and several community members have had of how deep their monitoring wells are, to see like how deep you have to go to get some of that contaminant up in your well.
I know the F,
240. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Alright, well, if there are no more questions or comments, I want to thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. We really appreciate you being here to learn more about this site and what's been going on recently. Community participation is so important, so we really appreciate you guys coming out for this. We will be on the lookout for information on an upcoming EPA meeting, and once we get information on that, we will share it out with our email list and probably send out some postcards as well too to remind people to attend that. And if we don't see you guys, this is our last meeting of the year, so if we don't see you guys through the rest of the year, I want to thank you guys again for coming. Have a very happy Thanksgiving and a wonderful rest of your holiday season. Thank you guys so much.